I have studied the minds of the world's most powerful men, Carnegie, Ford, Rockefeller, Edison. They were not made of magic. They were made of habits. Understand this. The man you become is not decided by what you do once, but by what you do daily. And most of what you do daily, you do without thinking. That's the secret few are willing to confront. Your life right now is the sum total of your habits. If you rise early or sleep through your purpose, if you speak boldly or stay silent in fear, if you feed your mind or numb it with distraction. These are not one-time choices. They are repeated identities. You cannot escape the gravitational pull of your habits. You will rise or fall to their level. That is why I tell every man who wants success, forget luck, forget talent. Build the system that makes success inevitable. Build habits that don't require motivation. Build discipline that doesn't need applause. The world looks for hacks. I look for rituals. Others chase novelty. I seek mastery. And mastery is nothing more than staying faithful to a small handful of behaviors until they shape your character, until they become the soil from which your legacy grows. The tragedy is that most people live by accident. They wake up reactive. They scroll. They rush. They put out fires. And in doing so, they train their mind to believe that chaos is normal. But I tell you, a powerful man does not live in reaction. He lives by design. And design begins with one decision: to own your habits before your habits own you. Because make no mistake, you are always rehearsing something. Every time you avoid responsibility, you rehearse weakness. Every time you speak without purpose, you rehearse confusion. But every time you rise with intention, speak with clarity, act with courage, you rehearse power. So if you want a different life, stop asking the world to change. Change your rituals. Start with the morning. Start with 1 hour that belongs only to you. Guard it like treasure. Fill it with silence, with reading, with action. And soon, your mind will begin to follow your lead. It will become your servant, not your master. That, my friend, is where true power begins. Not in talent, not in timing, but in the quiet, consistent commitment to train your mind every single day. And once you gain control of that, you can control anything. I have said it before, and I will say it again. Repetition is the architect of the subconscious mind. Every word you speak to yourself, every thought you allow to linger, every action you repeat, they all leave footprints. And if you repeat them long enough, they become roads. Roads that your mind will follow whether you like it or not. You want to change your life? Then you must change the road beneath your feet. And that road is habit, not once in a while, not when you feel like it. Daily, repeated, relentless, until what was once foreign becomes familiar, until what was once difficult becomes your new normal. When I wrote of autosuggestion, it was not some vague idea. I meant it literally. Say what you want out loud. Say it when you wake and again before you sleep. See it, believe it, feel it, as if it were already yours. And keep doing it until your subconscious no longer questions it. But understand this, it is not the words alone that build your future. It is the action that follows the words. If you say, I am disciplined, then you must act like it. If you say, I am wealthy, then your habits must reflect the stewardship, the decisiveness, the gratitude of a person who already is. Too many people try to convince the world before they have convinced themselves. They speak affirmations with their mouths while their actions tell the truth about what they really believe. I tell you this, your mind learns by what you do, not just what you say. If you want to install belief, you must back it with behavior. That is why purpose means nothing without pattern. A goal without a routine is only a wish. You may dream it, you may hope for it, but without the daily rhythm to carry it forward, it will drift away like mist in the sun. I have instructed many to write down their definite chief aim, to repeat it daily, to burn it into the mind with feeling. But the hidden truth behind that instruction was this: it is the repetition that brings it to life. Repetition is what builds belief, and belief is what activates faith. And faith, my friend, is the only thing that can bend reality in your favor. You must act before the evidence appears. You must show up when there is no applause, no progress, no clear path. Because habit is not about reward, it is about identity. Every time you do the hard thing when no one is watching, you cast a vote for the person you are becoming. That vote is invisible, but it counts. Why do you think high achievers guard their routines like treasure? Because they know that a clear mind comes from a clear schedule. They do not leave their energy to chance. They do not wait for inspiration to strike. They train their body and their mind to obey, to move when commanded, to perform, even in the absence of excitement. That is how power is formed. Not in one burst of effort, but in 1,000 tiny repetitions that no one will ever see. While others are watching the scoreboard, the successful are building their rhythm. You want freedom? Then submit yourself to discipline. You want peace? Then give your time a structure. You want clarity? Then remove the guesswork and follow your rituals like a sacred oath. I promise you the world will open itself to the man or woman who owns their day before the day begins. When you do the same thing over and over with intention, your brain learns to trust you. And once it trusts you, it begins to believe you are the kind of person who finishes what they start. That belief becomes a signal, and that signal shapes your destiny. So I ask you again, what habits are you feeding today? What identity are you reinforcing with your actions? Because whether you realize it or not, you are always training your mind. The only question is, are you training it for weakness or for strength? Most men are not held back by chains of steel, but by habits of comfort. You get used to hitting snooze, and soon your goals start sleeping in too. You get used to procrastination, and soon life stops knocking. What begins as convenience becomes a prison. And the bars, they are made of repetition. If your habits serve your comfort, they betray your future. And yet most people will defend those habits to their last breath. Why? Because they confuse familiarity with truth. They say, "This is just who I am." Number, that's just who you've rehearsed being. You've practiced mediocrity until it felt normal, but normal is not your calling. You were not born to drift. You were born to direct. And if you are to become anything worthwhile, you must first declare war on the rituals that keep you small. That's what I did. That's what every man of power must do. You cannot tiptoe into greatness. You must disrupt yourself. Disrupt the habit of complaining, replace it with ownership. Disrupt the habit of waiting, replace it with initiation. Disrupt the habit of feeding weakness, replace it with challenge, because you cannot install new results on an old operating system. And your operating system is made of habit. I don't care what your intention is if your behavior contradicts it. I care what you do when you're tired, what you do when you're ignored, what you do when no one is watching. That's where character is carved. In the lonely repetitions that feel meaningless, at least until they're not, you think one missed day doesn't matter. But every time you break your word to yourself, your mind remembers. Every excuse becomes a seed, and the harvest is regret. But the same is true in reverse. Every time you override that excuse, even once, you send a new signal to your subconscious. I lead now. This is not just about productivity. It is about personal authority. You must become the kind of person who does not ask for permission, not from the world, not from your mood, not from the past. You must act like your future self is watching, because they are, and they're wondering if you'll ever show up for them. That's why I built my mornings like a fortress. I gave my hours jobs to do. I gave my energy a mission. I did not allow my feelings to vote, because I knew one truth above all: comfort kills kings. And so I made discomfort my training ground. Understand this: your habits are not random. They are a vote for who you believe you are. If you want to change your life, change your vote. Cast it with every repetition. Cast it with every disciplined act. Over time, your subconscious will begin to trust this new identity. And when it does, your world will rearrange to reflect it. Most people try to change their results. I changed my rhythm. I aligned my day with my desires. I programmed my time with the frequency of power. And as my patterns changed, so did my possibilities. If you want to experience life at a higher level, you cannot bring the same routines that built your current one. You need to leave the old behind, not just the habits, but the identity that made excuses for them. That, my friend, is the power of habit, not just in shaping your schedule, but in transforming your self-concept. You are not just doing a new behavior, you are becoming a new being. And that is the foundation of all lasting transformation. And do you know what separates the successful from the almost successful? Ritual. Not just routine, ritual. A routine is something you do. A ritual is something you honor. It is infused with intention. It becomes sacred. And when your actions are sacred, your results become unstoppable. I never woke up and said, let's see how I feel today. That's how amateurs think. That's how drifters live. But the men who shape history, they command their day before the sun ever rises. They do not wait to feel motivated. They are moved by mission. You must ask yourself, what do I do before the world wakes up? Because that first hour is not just about time, it's about tone. It sets the vibration for everything that follows. And if you begin your day with strength, you will carry strength into your choices, your speech, your posture, your thinking. This is why I began every morning with thought, not reaction, not news, not distraction, thought. I sat with my definite purpose. I read aloud my desires. I saw them, felt them, rehearsed them, until my subconscious could not tell the difference between memory and vision. I nourished my mind before I fed my body. I exercised my will before I moved my limbs, because if you do not set your own tone, the world will set it for you, and let me tell you, the world is loud with fear, distraction, and confusion. If you want to live clearly, you must tune your mind daily. Your rituals do not need to be elaborate, they need to be consistent. A simple walk can be a ritual if you do it with presence. A single affirmation can shift your vibration if repeated with belief. The power is not in the act, it is in the intensity of attention you bring to it. When I practiced silence, I did not do it to appear wise. I did it to listen, not to others, but to the still voice within. Because when you become silent, you can finally hear the patterns of your thoughts. You can observe the programs you're running, and once you see a pattern, you can rewrite it. I knew men who were loud with words, but bankrupt in action. They talked of success while repeating the same tired cycles. But a man of power, he is quiet in his certainty. He does not need to broadcast what he's becoming. He is too busy becoming it. This is why I say, guard your first hour like a king guards his crown. What you do in that hour becomes your frequency, and your frequency becomes your magnet. It will attract or repel everything in your life. So design your mornings, prepare them the night before, make your movement sacred, make your affirmations thunder in your chest, make your breath the bridge between the man you are and the man you're becoming. Because no matter how chaotic the world becomes, no one can take your rituals from you, and in that truth lies ultimate power. Your external life may twist and bend, but your internal rhythm can remain unshaken. And that's how empires are built. Not in noise, but in quiet consistency. Not with luck, but with laws. Not from force, but from frequency. And that frequency is set by the habits you perform every single day, especially the ones no one sees. I've heard it said that belief comes first, that you must feel confident, certain, unstoppable, and then you will act. But let me tell you something you won't hear in those watered-down motivational speeches. Belief is not a feeling. Belief is a decision. And it is built not once, but daily through action. I did not always believe I would succeed. There were days I felt like a fraud, days when doubt felt louder than purpose. But I acted anyway. And through that repetition, through the behavior of belief, I became the man I once only imagined. You see, your mind is not moved by what you say, it is moved by what you prove. And every habit is a proof. When you rise at dawn, your mind learns, I am disciplined. When you speak your desire aloud, your subconscious hears, we are serious. When you take action, even small, your soul responds, we are in motion. That's how belief is earned, through demonstration, not declaration. And so many of you wait. You wait for the confidence to come. You wait for someone to validate your vision. You wait for motivation to strike like lightning. And in the waiting, you weaken. You don't need lightning, you need leverage. You need a reason to keep going that's stronger than your excuse to stop. And the fastest way to create that reason, begin. Begin with the smallest step. Begin with imperfect courage. Begin even when your hands shake. Begin even when your voice trembles. Because that beginning is the spark that can light the fire of belief. Understand, belief is forged in the furnace of repetition, not inspiration, repetition. Every day you repeat a disciplined act, you deepen the grooves in your identity, and eventually your brain stops asking, who am I to do this? Because your behavior is already answered. That's why habits are not just about productivity. They are your personal proof. They are the receipts of your identity. And if you do not like what you believe about yourself, look to your rituals. Not your dreams, not your intentions, your rituals. That's where your self-concept lives. When I was building my life from nothing, I didn't just read books. I rehearsed belief. I practiced conviction. I used the repetition of thought, of word, of action, until it became so loud, there was no room for doubt. And when doubt returned, as it always does, I did not argue with it. I outperformed it. I buried it in proof. That's the power of habit. It doesn't just create momentum. It creates certainty. And that certainty becomes magnetic. You want to believe in yourself? Show yourself something to believe in. You want to silence doubt, drown it in action. You want to feel like a new man? Behave like one until you no longer have to pretend. Because belief is not magic. It's momentum. You think the world is unfair? That it doesn't see you? That it overlooks your potential, your effort, your ideas? Let me correct that illusion. The world is not blind, it is obedient. It responds to what you repeatedly signal. And your signal is your habit. Every action you take tells the world how to treat you. When you walk with discipline, the world sees a man of purpose. When you speak with clarity, people listen. When you show up again and again, even without reward, the world starts to reward you, not because it suddenly decided to like you, but because you trained it to respect you. That's what most people don't realize. Your environment is not fixed. It is feedback. Your relationships, your bank account, your opportunities, all of them reflect the standard you uphold through your daily behavior. If you accept chaos, you invite disrespect. If you commit to order, you command respect. If you keep your promises to yourself, others start believing in your word. But if you betray your word, and if you start and stop, hesitate, complain, make excuses, the world echoes that energy right back to you. People say, I'm not getting the results I want. And I ask them, are you becoming the person who attracts those results? Because results don't come from wishing, they come from alignment. And alignment is a byproduct of habit. Every day you train the world how to respond to you, not by what you say, but by what you repeat. You want others to see you as trustworthy? Keep your own word? You want to be seen as powerful? Show consistency, not chaos. You want more opportunity? Prove that you can sustain what you already have. This is the law of correspondence. As within, so without. Your inner order creates outer structure. And if you want to shift what's showing up around you, don't beg, don't chase, don't blame. Upgrade your rituals, because once your identity shifts, the entire universe rearranges to match it. I've watched men go from invisible to irresistible, not because they changed their luck, but because they changed their rhythm. They stopped playing the old tune of delay, fear, and procrastination. They began a new song, one of precision, of commitment, of fire. And the world danced to that beat. Do not underestimate how responsive reality is. Reality bends to repetition. Reality echoes frequency. And your habits are your frequency. So when you rise early, again and again, that's not just a good idea. That's a signal. When you prepare in silence while others scroll, that's a signal. When you take the hard path over and over, that's a signal. And those signals speak louder than words. This is how empires are built, not by accident, not by talent alone, but by men who understood, I don't need permission, I need pattern. Do not be fooled by the size of your actions today. Do not be discouraged by the quiet of your progress, because every habit you build, every disciplined step you take, carries a power far beyond the moment. This is what the unsuccessful man never understands. What you do daily is never neutral. It is either compounding your weakness or compounding your greatness. Let me show you the law that most people ignore. Small, smart choices, repeated consistently over time, produce radical results. Not overnight, but always. It's not dramatic, it's not glamorous, but it is unbreakable. The man who rises early today gains nothing noticeable. The world doesn't clap, but do it for a week, you gain clarity. Do it for a month, you gain momentum. Do it for a year, you become unrecognizable. You want an extraordinary life? Stack ordinary habits. You want world-class strength? Start with one disciplined decision. You want to become legendary? Repeat the boring excellence that others avoid. I didn't write Think and Grow Rich because of one moment of genius. I wrote it because of one habit. I showed up every single day. Even when the words didn't flow, even when the doubts returned, even when nobody was listening. Because here's what I knew: the future always belongs to the consistent. You see, success does not shout. It whispers, keep going. It whispers, stack again. It whispers, this is working, even if you can't see it yet. And if you ignore that whisper, you miss the miracle. But if you listen, if you trust the compound effect, your life begins to rise like a tide, quiet, steady, relentless. Suddenly, you are not just someone who tries, you are someone who is. You are not just chasing your future, you are becoming it. And here's the final truth you must burn into your mind. The habit creates the identity creates the destiny. So if you want to change your life, stop trying to change everything. Change one thing, repeat it until it becomes who you are, then stack another and another and another. That is how you create a force so powerful the world must take notice. You don't need more inspiration, you need repetition. You don't need to believe it first, you need to behave first, because when the behavior is right, the belief will catch up. And when belief arrives, backed by proof, nothing can stop you. Now listen carefully, because this separates the masters from the quitters. It's not the perfect man who wins. It's the one who returns. You will fall off. You will miss a day. You will lose the spark. And in that moment, the weak voice will creep in. It's over. You've ruined the streak. You're not cut out for this. But that voice is a lie. You don't lose power when you fail. You lose power when you believe that failure is final. The greatest force you can ever build is not flawless execution. It's the ability to return, to come back to the gym, to come back to your plan, to come back to your values, to come back to the man you decided to be, no matter how far you drifted. Because when you return, you prove to yourself that you are not a slave to emotion. You are not defined by one bad day. You are not the sum of your mistakes. You are the force that rises again. This is how real men are forged, not in streaks of perfection, but in the moments when it would have been easier to stay down, and they stood back up anyway. Let me say this as clearly as I can. You are always one decision away from being back on track. Not 5, not a full plan, just one. One act of alignment, one step toward the identity you're building, one rejection of the excuse, one return to the ritual. And that return, my friend, is more powerful than the fall ever was. Because every return strengthens your core. It says, yes, I fell, but I came back stronger. Yes, I broke my word, but I repaired it. Yes, I lost time, but I will never lose again the same way. That is evolution. That is the path of greatness. Not a life without mistakes, but a life that turns every mistake into fuel. You think your power is in being perfect? No, your power is in who you become after imperfection. The man who never fell never learned how strong his return could be. You've heard enough about goals. You've heard enough about hacks and shortcuts and tricks. Let me tell you the real secret. The most powerful man is not the man with the best plan. He's the man with the deepest identity. Because when your identity is rooted in principle, you don't need motivation. When you become the kind of man who trains daily, you don't argue with yourself about going to the gym. When you become the kind of man who protects his time, you don't need a timer to stop scrolling. When you become the kind of man who speaks with purpose, you don't waste words trying to impress small minds. It is who you are, not what you do occasionally, that carves your destiny, and the tool that sculpts that identity is habit. Every single habit is a vote, not for the man you are now, but for the man you are becoming. Every repetition says, "This is who I am." And eventually you don't need to fake it. You don't need to force it, because it becomes you. Let me give you the formula that built giants. Decide who you must become. Choose the smallest habit that proves it. Repeat until it is no longer a decision, but a reflex. You don't rise under pressure. You fall to the level of your training. You don't get ready for the storm. You are ready because you've trained every morning in silence with no audience, no applause, no rush. That's the mark of a leader. That's the discipline that builds legacies. That's the inner power that cannot be moved. And when the world throws chaos at you, as it will, you don't flinch. Because the man you've built through daily ritual is calm, focused, and already prepared. You don't pray for easy. You train for certain. You don't chase moments. You become a movement. Because here's what most men never realize. You are not working on your goal. You are working on yourself. And once you are forged, the goals must fall into place. It's not magic. It's not luck. It's not the universe. It's alignment. The outer always follows the inner. And when you live by habit, not emotion, your inner world becomes a fortress. So now you've walked the full path, and you've seen the truth behind every success story that the world misunderstands. It wasn't genius, and it wasn't timing, and it wasn't even belief at first. It was habit, relentless, repeated, earned. And now you must decide what kind of man you will be, not in theory, but in ritual. Because in the end, your life will not be defined by what you started. It will be defined by what you repeated. When the world remembers you, they won't recall your ideas. They'll remember your standards. They won't remember your feelings. They'll remember your discipline. They won't care what you dreamed. They'll carry what you built. That's what habit gives you, the blueprint for your legacy. Not a wish, not a someday, but something solid, daily, permanent. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Success comes to those who become success conscious. Failure comes to those who indifferently allow themselves to become failure conscious. That's not a metaphor, that's a habit. What you dwell on, what you speak, what you do, those become your identity. Your identity becomes your future, and your future becomes your influence on the world. So if you want to leave a mark that cannot be erased, don't just speak like the man you admire. Live like him, wake like him, train like him, rest like him. Show up when no one watches like him. And one day, someone will whisper your name in reverence. Not because you were the loudest, but because you were the most disciplined. You want to lead nations? Start with your morning. You want to build empires? Start with your evening. You want to change lives? Start with your habits. That is your kingdom. That is your sword. That is your legacy. So I leave you with this one final charge. Stop trying to feel ready. Stop waiting for the world to notice. Stop counting days. Start building them. Because you, my friend, you were never meant to be average. You were meant to be legendary. And legend is nothing more than habit, written in eternity. Start today. The world makes way for those who dare to rise. Click the rise button now and claim the destiny waiting for you. Your time is now.